I serve God. Luckily, I get to do it through Barracuda Staffing and Consulting. We help businesses find people and fix people problems, kind of what was said earlier. So that's just one of the few businesses that I own, but I really am just blessed to be here today, to be honest with you. Been surrounded by all these great leaders, and so thank you.
Okay, Mandy.
Hi there, my name is Mandy McElroy, and I also serve God. How funny. I would guess many of us do, but that's cool. Super happy to be here today. I own Royal Valet. We provide most of the valet parking that happens in the city. So if you've been to one of the restaurants downtown, or have been to a concert at the casino, or attended a nonprofit event, I have probably parked your car, and I'm happy to be here. Thanks, Kim.
Not you personally, but you're. You may have one
I do.
time or another.
I parked cars last night, so.
Okay, and we'll go right over here to Will.
I'm Will Jackson. I own North Star Fabrication and Jackson Real Estate Holdings. We are a commercial industrial building contractor and real estate developer here in Tulsa. And, I'm grateful to God every day I get to do this. So.
And Cheryl.
I'm Cheryl Chenoweth and Cohen Realtors, and I'm excited to be here too.
All of these four panelists are involved in roundtables. That is part of what we do with 94X, and we provide an opportunity for you to take the principles that are outlined in the book 94X. So there are 12 principles, and when we go through them, we take one principle each month, and we have videos that go along with that. But we're going to talk a little bit today about kind of the value of what they're seeing in their work and how they implement God into their businesses. But so it's been an honor we have a women's 94X roundtable, and Kevin and Will each lead a group of their own. And so roundtables are something we would love for you to get involved with, and we have more information on that at our website, and I'll give you a little bit more in that in the future. But let's just start today with, let's start with Cheryl. We'll start on this end here. So let's talk about making room for everyone. How do you foster a culture that respects all people, including those of different faiths, while still holding on to your personal Christian beliefs?
Within our company, we've made it known that we're faith-based. And until I heard the attorney earlier this morning, I wasn't too scared about other religions and what was going on with that. So we say prayer before we have meals at our different company events. We pray. Both of my sons are also strong Christians and say great prayers. So we really have not shied away from that. We are a God-driven company, and our managers, of which several are here today, our managers and our staff, and our majority of our agents know that. And also we have a on-staff pastor. So he's really helped us quite a bit with that, and when we run into trouble, we talk to him.
You know what I think is interesting, because you're all in a field of service in an area where you're likely going to meet a lot of people of different faiths and different backgrounds. So I think that is what is interesting to hear, that again, about keeping your faith first and foremost, but at the same time, you're going to have realtors of all different faiths, and that they still want to become part of what Chenoweth and Cohen are doing. So that's great. All right, Will Jackson, you're on the hot seat. Will, let's talk about support systems. How do you ensure that your faith stays strong even during the changing times of what's happening in the economy?
Well, it starts with when I get up in the morning. Spend time with God, spend time in the Word, and which leads to abiding. And I surround myself with other Christian business leaders that make Christ-centered decisions. And I've got a wife that keeps me grounded. So.
I love that. All right, we're going to go over here to Mandy. Mandy, let's talk about work-life balance because you have quite a bit going on. In addition to, of course, the one company, you and your husband are very involved in other businesses, and you have kiddos, and so you're busy. How do you maintain a balance between your professional ambitions and your spiritual commitments?
I actually shared on this topic briefly at my roundtable, which, shameless plug, if you're not part of a roundtable, whenever that opportunity presents again, it's wonderful to sit with a group of like-minded business owners and leaders and be able to get into the hard topics and really talk about that. I was at an event about a year ago, and I actually heard another female business entrepreneur say, I had to throw the idea of balance out the window. And she wasn't a believer, but I really adopted what she said because I realized we do. My husband likes to refer to us as serial entrepreneurs. We're involved in several businesses. We have 4 children, and they range from 3 to 12, so they're not by any means grown. We're actively raising children. We're very involved in our church, and just a lot going on. So the ideal of balance, it to me feels like it's going to break me, because if you're balanced, you're not moving. And if you're in any type of leadership or entrepreneurship, if I'm static, that's a bad place to be, because nothing is growing, nothing is changing, nothing's evolving. I'm just static. So I gave up on the idea of balance because I can't achieve that. But I can evolve and embrace this beautiful word of integration. So it looks like there's not this space. I can't live a life where every morning I spend 30 minutes in the Word and 30 minutes praying, and then I go work from just 9 to 5 and come home and fix dinner and sit on the floor and play games and read books. I can't accomplish that. It's not real life. But I can learn how to seek the Lord when I'm walking. My team knows that when we get stuck on something, they're like, Mandy's going to go for a walk. And out the door I go to pray and seek heaven on what's the next strategy we're to adopt. Or my children, they know that we're entrepreneurs and we're building that in them. So sometimes it looks like my oldest son comes and works events with me and has learned his role in helping the business. Our younger kids have learned that. My 3-year-old pretends the Valley Park car is in our living room. So giving up this idea of balance, because I personally believe it's not achievable in the role that I play, but I can integrate. I can find the different ways to bring every piece together, to worship, to take care of my health, to take care of my family, and to lead our businesses successfully. When I bring it all together, it's actually pretty great.
Love that. Thank you, Mandy. Okay, Kevin. So let's talk about ethical dilemmas. Can you share a time when your faith influenced a business decision, especially when faced with an ethical dilemma?
It's funny that you bring that up because I was just talking to my table about ethical dilemmas. So my business is 14 years old, and during this time, I've come to know Christ. I'll be honest with you. I was not a believer early in my life. I wasn't raised in that type of home. But I have now been surrounded by great businessmen and friends that have encouraged me to seek Lord, and it's been an amazing trip. But prior to that, I was faced with an ethical dilemma. I had a boss that was the opposite probably of everybody in this room. And he liked to do everything that included sin. And I came home one night and I told my wife that I can't do this anymore. My marriage to you is more important than the money I'm making. And so in November of 2009, I quit a 6-figure job to go start a staffing company when nobody was hiring. And to bring the story full circle, my wife was a believer, and I'm so lucky. She introduced me to Christ. And that introduction has changed my life, my kids' life, my business, and my employees. And I'm so thankful.
I love that. Wow. That's the power of one, the power of one. Okay, back to you, Cheryl. Let's talk about navigating criticism. How do you respond to people who say that business and faith shouldn't mix?
I haven't had too many in our company that have said that to us, and I think it's because we're so first foot forward with it, they might be afraid they would be abrasive to us, which, you know, we've had discussions as a family about how do we handle. My husband's here, Lee Cohen. He's Messianic, Jewish, and, you know, we give him a really hard time about it. But he, you know, because of this, we've had discussions about different, and we have a pretty sizable Jewish group within our company. And, you know, they're God's chosen people, and we've, you know, at Christmas times, we've also, in some of the offices where there's a large group of agents that are Jewish, we've put up the menorahs, but we don't stop talking about what we believe and what we think. And if I've got a minute to share a story I never ever get to share, I was thinking, you know, usually when I'm on stage, I'm talking about real estate mainly and how our company has grown. They never ask me to speak about life balance, never, because, you know, that would be a joke in my life, but I don't have any balance. So I just go and go and go. At one point, I started getting really ill. And when I went to the doctor, she said, you know, you've grown the business, it's really large, you're doing really, really well. And my sons have been in the business now, one 15, the other one 19 years. And we're celebrating our 20th year this coming in 2024. And I was doing real estate all day long, sleeping about 4 or 5 hours a night. But when I'd get home, or 6, 7 in the evening, my phone would start ringing with personal issues going on with my agents. They didn't want to bother me during the day because I knew I was busy. So I would be talking to, you know, our realtors become family to us. You know, they are, you know, our crazy relatives at the family reunion. You know, we see them every day, and we love it and we enjoy it. But I was spending so much time speaking with them over parents that were ill, that they were having to take care of, or children that were in trouble. And it was weighing on me so much that, you know, every year I'd go for a physical, and I was just fine. And I went one year, and my doctor said, your body is reacting as if though your spouse is terminal, and I know he's not because he's my patient also, so what's going on with you? And when we walked through it, she said, you're actually doing like 3 full-time jobs, and you've got to, she literally said, to fix your health, turn the business over to your sons. They can run it now, they can do it, and you don't need to do this anymore. Let's try to get your health back because you're going to crash and burn. So I called my brother, lived in Kansas City at the time, and I called him and I said, my doctor wants me to give up real estate. He said, it's all you've done your whole life. My father started his real estate company in 1944, and I worked 15 years with them. And my brother said, I don't think you're walking away from your company's the answer, but let me think about it overnight. He called me the next morning and he said, you are not a psychiatrist, and you are not a therapist, and you are not a minister. But you can put a minister on staff, and you will have to learn to say, when you get these calls, and they especially, I mean, we got to where the 4 of us family members, we were at a funeral home, or we were at a wedding, or we were at a baby shower, we were at, you know, someone's house, literally. We've had agents in car accidents that call us before they call the police. You know, so we were constantly working with our realtors on a capacity that we've come to learn wasn't healthy for us. So my brother said, what you need to do is take more time off. You cannot leave the business. That's just not who you are. But hire a minister, put him on staff. And then when you get the call, we had one this week. I don't want to get emotional, but we had this one this week. One was very seriously injured and is in ICU right now. And knew I can't walk in. I can't even send flowers in, but I could call him, and he could go. And he went to the hospital and met and prayed with her family. If I can't do those things, and I can't give back, and I can't support, if I can't make lives better, I don't want to do this anymore. So bringing him, my brother told me, but you've got to be able to say, and this is hard, I will be there or I will send someone to be there. And that is our on-staff minister. So if you've got a large company and you want to change your life, bring that person on because it saved my health.
That's powerful, Cheryl. Thank you for sharing that. That's why Regent has a prayer group, as Sean mentioned earlier. Will, what about, what role does mentorship and guidance play for you? How do you, as you're encouraging other young professionals and those coming up in the field, how do you encourage them?
So for me, my journey with Christ started about 15 years ago, and from where I was and where God has brought me, it's required tremendous change in my life. And God picked me up off the ground. And for those of you that know my story, my life is nothing like it was 15 years ago. But during that time, God has done a work and continues to do a work in my life, and through countless mentors and people that have enabled my success along the way. There's no such thing as a self-made man, and there are literally hundreds of people that have helped me along the way, and and I'm surrounded with great people. And that's what I would encourage, and that's what fuels me. That's what makes me want to give back. Most of the mentors that have played a role in my life, I can never pay them back, but I can pass it on, and so that's what keeps me going. And so I just I run towards growth and change, and I hope I always will. And so leading a roundtable group, I kind of suffer from imposter syndrome sometimes, and I'm like, is that really what I need to be focusing on, God? Like, really? I had that conversation with myself, and and after a few minutes, I'm like, okay, that's exactly what I need to be focused on and be all in with, and so I got a group of guys that we're going through those 12 principles, and I'm learning this along the way, I've heard a couple of guys talk about, where this idea of bringing God into the workplace was born out of in their lives. And, for me, it was a few years ago, and I was discussing with my wife. I'm like, what we can do with this business, and I'm trying to cast this incredible vision about, how we can serve the kingdom. And she's like, why don't you serve the people that are in front of you? And it hit home. She's like, serve the employees that you're around every day. And I was like, oh, I had all these visions that were out here with doing other things, and so that's really where it was born, with my wife being direct with me, and and so that's what I try to do. I'm not perfect. I mean, God had to really take me on a journey from being basically a toxic leader to, that's where it starts with abiding. It starts with that time with God, and it starts with abiding to where we have the spiritual awareness to see what the opportunities that the Holy Spirit puts in front of us every day to serve Him and to be a light. And so that's what it's all about.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That's going to wrap up our time. But I love the different viewpoints with the different businesses. That's the value of what you're going to see, and that's what everybody represents out here, is to realize that each of these that are up here are you. That's a portion of who you are and how you bring God into your business. So let's give a round of applause for them. Thank you guys so much for being here with us.